Hey guys, welcome to People I Think Are Cool. I'm your host, Liz Reed, one part of the art duo Cuddles and Rage, and this is my show where I interview cool, interesting, creative people. Today I am talking to Jess Guise. She is a musician. She's one of those people who are just like smart, talented, hilarious, which is my favorite of all. And I can't wait to share her story with you. So guys, enjoy this interview with the super cool Jess Guise. You know what? Let's start there. You know, when I first started listening to your music, the first thing, and just like kind of like researching you, the first things that I realized was that you're hilarious. And that you're super smart, and that you write lyrics that really speak to me. I mean, of course, everybody feels that way, like, oh, the song speaks to me, but it really does, because I grew up on Ani DeFranco, but I cried my eyes out, like, to the point that like I can't listen to songs with lyrics because all I did was cry about it. But then when I visited your music, I guess maybe because I'm at a different age now, I'm 38, it gave me. It felt like Ani, but with a different perspective, with like a stronger woman's perspective. She's super strong. No, don't get me wrong, but like I'm not a teenager crying over breakups.
Yeah, so maybe you're the stronger woman.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing that you say that. I am a massive Annie fan.
Yeah.
I played a gig when I was first sort of in London, so years and years ago, about 10 years ago. I played a little like open mic gig. And one of the guys that was there said, "Oh, you obviously listen to a lot of Ani DeFranco, don't you?" And I had never heard of her. So she's someone I adore now, but she's not actually the influence that you. Listening to my music now and listening to her, I'm like, of course everyone thinks I copied her, but I've never heard of her when I started. I'm not copied, you know what I mean? Everyone knows that she was the influence, but actually it was more. Do you know who Dar Williams is?
No.
Ever come across her? She's an American singer-songwriter. She's quite niche. And sort of the folk Americana world, and it was her, and she's that really made the inspiration behind the way that I write songs and the way that I write words in particular. A lot of it I nicked from her rather than Annie, but they do have their similarities. So no, it's a massive compliment for you to say that it reminds you of her. That's incredible.
Yeah. No, you haven't gotten as angry as her yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, not outwardly. Well, I don't write about politics ever, and I still haven't done. And it's just because when I think about politics, it doesn't make me feel musical. It just doesn't make me feel creative. And anger is not. It's not an emotion I carry very well. I don't like it. I don't like feeling it. I sort of spiral into a self-loathing. Why am I angry? It's probably me. The problem's probably me. Place. So I don't do angry songs. I've got a couple of angry love songs up my sleeve, which are more sort of spiteful, I'd say, than angry. So there's a couple of those that I haven't really. They're old, I should say. They're not recent, thankfully. Poor Frank. But they haven't been released yet. So there's a couple with a bit of bite. But yeah, no, you're right. I don't really do angry. Not yet.
But you like I was listening to an interview that you did. I think, is it like a York podcast? Or...
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lovely podcast, When in Yorkshire. Yeah.
Yes. So that was a great interview, and in there he was talking about your song, "The Fun Part," which is the first song that you've written that I listened to, and he's like, "It's funny, right? It's funny." And then when I first heard, I was like, "Funny?" I was like, "Yes, there." You know, like when you kind of like are speaking, it's funny, but I was like, "But this hits my heart."
You gotta be able to laugh about the worst things that happen. Like laughing at yourself is like medicine for me when things are bad or I'm sad. The best way out of it has always been to make a joke of it. For me, that's my coping mechanism. So this song, "The Fun Part," is genuine, and again, you know, amazingly, people are always like, "Oh, I can hear so much of your husband's influence on your music in this." I wrote it a decade before I met Frank. I wrote it a long time ago, and it was a bad story. It didn't go well. It was like probably, I think, the worst heartbreak of my life, that one. Yeah, it was really, really grim, really short-lived, but really painful. You know, the kind like.
Oh yeah. I think that's why I'm like, I like this. There's no humor. I mean, there's humor, but I'm not feeling it sometimes.
But I remember at the time being how ridiculous that I feel like this about a guy that I've only known for a few months. It was very short. was like, how is that possible? I'm absurd. And that is, I think, the level of humor that's in the song. It's like, what, like, this is stupid. This is supposed to be fun. You're ridiculous, Jessica. And that's where the that's where the humor kind of came from in it. And I hope that it's funny, but also the lyric I'm terrified was totally true. That was 100% honest at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of like why I like your writing, because I'm the person that like I don't like slapstick comedies. I like comedies that make me cry. Right? So your songs kind of do the same, where it's like humorous, but I might be crying at the end.
Oh, I don't want to make you cry, but I suppose if you can make, you know, after 10 years as an actress, making somebody laugh and making somebody cry, those are the like big achievements of it means you've done a good day's work. You know, if you're in a show and someone cries and laughs in that show, that's a win. So if you can do it in a song as well, then so much the better. You know, that's like, good, I have connected.
yes, no, for sure. And then the music video that goes with it. I mean, I was a little sad that like in the podcast it spoiled it for me. Like I wanted this, I wanted to be a surprise. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like where your sense of humor just like really, I really felt it there, because, you know, I love it when people are serious but don't take themselves seriously, like you said. So how did you come up with that concept?
It was shot by my bassist Titus, the band that I play with, my band that is Guise. I mean, Guise is kind of me and also the band version. And we all met at Oxford at university, and Titus he's a playwright and a director, and an editor. So he's the guy that shot it. But we were trying to think, we didn't have any money. There was no money, so it was just a couple of mates, and we were like, what could we do that doesn't require anything? And I guess I think I just wanted something, because it's a very vulnerable song. Actually, it's a silly song in some ways, but it is about making yourself vulnerable. And I think that's where the idea kind of came from, and slow, like long shot stuff that you could do.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and it's amazing how sometimes the limitations that you have will give you the ideas. And it was, I mean, in some ways it's completely horrifying. I've had a lot of people being like, oh my God, clowns are horrifying. Why did you do that? I hate clowns. I'm terrified of clowns. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm not. I didn't think about it. But it was more about that, like how hard it felt that it fitted the song, because it's about how hard you try, specifically how hard you try to like look cool and not make clear how much you care about in those early days, especially if it's probably not the right one. You know, if you find the right person, not to say when I did find the right person, which I did many years later, that it was like easy. It wasn't easy at all. It was impossible for a while. But these things tend to be when you get old, you know, just generally. But when you meet someone and it's not quite right, and you know that somewhere, and you're just trying really hard to pretend that it's fine. And so I came up with the idea that it's sort of me putting makeup on in front of a screen. Like, it was not comfortable for me, to be honest. I didn't like doing it at all. It felt very vulnerable, but that felt like a good thing.
Yeah.
Mainly just to be on screen without makeup. Like, as an actor, it's like, oh, that's horrifying.
You're like, put the soap opera effect on me, please.
Where's my makeup team? Yeah, so that was genuinely quite scary for me, which I thought was good. And also the idea that you just keep trying to be cool. You keep trying to be cool to the point that you stop being yourself at all. But then what we thought was nice about when she meets the second clown. Again, I've had quite a lot of people write in complaint that second clown was not my husband, and he was on tour. So.
I mean, but it's a story that you're telling. Although it's from the heart, you're telling a story that's outside you at that point. Like, you've gotten it out of your system.
Exactly. And it's my very, very gorgeous friend James, who I was in a show with for a year and a half, who is like tall and dashingly handsome and an excellent actor. And so we thought the best thing that we could do with him is make him into a clown. Best use of resources.
Yeah.
So the idea was that then actually, you know, when it's good, the barriers aren't a problem, or you can see the barriers in the other person as well, and that everyone is doing it. So that was kind of the idea. But it really, it came from a place of like lack of finances.
But I mean, everybody's making content with lack of finances. Yeah. It's almost not important anymore. It's about putting it out there.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. And I think, you know, the other video that we did, I did myself out of, I cut it together myself out of stuff from my childhood. And a necessity is quite good for creativity, I suppose, when you have to do it quickly as well.
Yeah, you're talking about Brother in Arms?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I was walking my dog, like, getting refreshed on your music, and then I started crying. This is why I don't listen to music with the lyrics, because it always makes me cry. Like, I can be playing cards, and my husband could put on the National, and then I'll start crying. He's like, it's too much.
No,
Like, it's too much.
dangerous. You have to save the National for very specific moments in life.
Yes, he doesn't understand it. I'm like, look, I swear I blame it on Ani. I blame it on Ani. But, you know, the reason why I started crying, and then the neighbor said, hello, I'm like, hi. Because I watched your video, and then I realized that it was a very, very personal song.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah, that's my most personal one that I've got out there to date, certainly. Well, they're all absolutely truthful. It's just that one's about something, not that it wasn't desperately sad to have my heart broken by someone I've known for 3 months, but it's not the same league as losing my dad, which is what Brother in Arms is about. Just a different kind of sad, you know. So yeah, it's a very personal song. It's very, very truthful.
So as somebody who kind of like copes with humor, I can relate to that. How did you decide to just kind of drop all that?
I didn't. Songwriting is really odd for me. Like originally the song was just going to be about my brother. So he was having quite a difficult time. And I found this riff that I really liked. And I don't write anything down when I'm writing. I do it all on recording. So I have my, and I just sort of sing and go, la la, ooh, words. And then the words will start to come, and then I'll sort of form them and I tend to write verbally, which is annoying for my band because I never have any written down lyrics when I get to rehearsals. And really need to remember to do that. But it just kind of fell out, with a few exceptions, some bits that I had to work really hard on to get them accurate, but it just kind of happened, that song. And it's sometimes you hit a riff or you hit a lyric and you're like, okay, now you have to work really hard because this is a good one, or this is an important one, so you have to make sure that the rest of the song fits. And it was kind of a bit like that. So the keys to the song kind of fell out while I was playing. And then I spent quite a long time decorating the door, as it were. So it's never really a conscious decision to go humor or not. And humor it's not something I use in all my songs. It's just something I use in my day-to-day life all the time. But it's never like a conscious decision because it's just the way I talk. Do you know what I mean? So it's either I'm in a serious mood or I'm in a sort of, normally when I'm like cross at myself or annoyed at something, that's when the humor comes out. So it's never like, this one's a funny one, this one's a serious one. Like, whatever place I'm in is what comes out generally.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it's too hard to say that you're gonna, I mean, I'm assuming with music to say I'm gonna write down and write this like funny riff.
Yeah, I think some people do. Some people can sort of sit and force themselves to write things. And I have written, there are a couple of songs that I've written all the words. And again, it's like, but when I say written, I mean, I've written them on pen and paper, but they still kind of fell out in the way that they do when I'm doing it verbally as well. Mm-hmm. So sitting down and kind of, generally I'll get like a problem section where I have to sort of go, right, now you need to write this section. So crack out the rhyming dictionary. Not really.
I have one of those for writing. I'm not judging.
This is some Bruce Springsteen albums and you're like, dude, this was a dictionary.
You pulled out the thesaurus.
Exactly. And every now and again you do get stuck. You do need something that fits and that limits what you're. But yeah, so sometimes I feel like it's like crafting or fitting the words into a space that already exists. But most of the time, it's just kind of feels nice as it comes out.
What is it like having people come to you now and like I'm sharing with you like listening to your music and how it makes me feel, but now that you're hearing that more and more. I mean, I take the David Lynch approach where, like, I don't have to know the meaning. It's, like, whatever it means to me. But I guess, like, how do you take that in, especially if somebody interprets it differently? Are you just like, that's good?
Yeah, I am. The thing that I find most problematic is when people think that they worked out the answer in my life. So, yes. You know what I mean? Like, I love it when people go, oh, this made me think of this, or, you know, someone sent me, there's a lyric in Brother in Arms, which is born of the best of men, it's about my dad. Mm-hmm. And someone sent me a message saying I was also born of the best of men, and I know what it's like to lose them. And that was like, wow, that for me, that's amazing that story is, to them, it's about their story, and it should be. It's when people go, and this is normally more related to who I'm married to than anything else, is that people go, oh, well, this must have been at that point in their relationship, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're always wrong. You're
rude.
Yeah, people, is that I find slightly irritating, because it's just like, no, not even, and also, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
That I find a bit, I get a bit defensive around when people sort of make assumptions about who I'm writing about, because a lot of these songs are much older than people know as well.
Yeah.
So that one, that's the only time I get a bit like, no, it's not about that. It's not about that. You know what I mean?
in a polite fashion, yeah.
Otherwise, generally, I'm like, take it and make it, you know, it can be about whatever you want it to be about. But I see that. I mean, it's silly of me, really, because I'm a massive Fleetwood Mac fan. And, you know, when I was growing up, I was obsessed with which Stevie Nicks songs were about her breakup with Lindsey Buckingham. And I was really interested in that. And people find the real lives of artists very interesting. You know, they do it with Frank as well. He has a lot of songs with a character called Amy, and there are theories about who it is.
Don't Google.
I'm not doing Google. Well, because people ask me, you know, people say, you know, and then it's like, I don't want to tell them the reality because it's disappointing. But so people love true stories, and I understand that. But it is sometimes a little bit like, I'd rather you just sort of didn't come to me to check, because all I'm going to do is tell you that you're wrong.
Yeah, no, I believe in privacy for the artist, and you know, and that also goes back to the David Lynch reference. Like, you don't owe anybody anything, and you are gonna like distort their view if you tell them exactly what it was, and almost let them down. It's like when you go to a concert and the artist is like selling their albums, and you buy the older album, and they're like, "Why do you want the old one? This is the new one." It's like, because that one has meaning to me. Like, it's not about you. You've put your music out there.
I'm not here for you. Well, exactly, and that becomes really obvious to me. Is like, now I get to see a bit, because, you know, doing music, really, I only started really trying to make this a thing this year. I chose a really bad year for it, but what are you going to do? I feel you. I've seen, you know, I've been with my husband Frank for 5 years, so I've seen a lot of the other side of it from both sides, and a level of success that I hadn't previously sort of perceived as an insider. And it's fascinating, because people they are interested in the person, and they generally do want to talk to, and they love finding out the secrets. And I don't blame them, because, like I say, if I could ask Stevie Nicks those questions, I would. On the 7th of June, I would be that person. You know, I'm like such a mad mega fan. But it's more that, like, when people come together and they say things like, this song means XYZ to me because of this other person in my life, that's really where the magic is for me. It's when it tells part of their own story as well. That's really special. It's like, okay, wow, this thing that I made that was actually about this very mundane thing in my very ordinary life is special to you because of something significant in your life. That is cool. That's my favorite.
Yeah, and that's what keeps an artist going, really. Like, when you make it not about you, that's what makes you want to do more.
Exactly. And when the reality is, we all have the same, you know, well, we don't all have the same life, but we all live a normal human life. And this is the thing that I feel like saying to people sometimes. It's like, quite a lot of the time people are like, oh, you have you have a cat, it's not very punk rock, or it's practically walking up, that's not very punk rock. Actually, people never complain about the cat, but it's like, he's a human, of course he empties the dishwasher. Like, we all live quite mundane lives day to day, and the music is what makes it feel special. And sometimes I feel like people, they don't want to see the mundane, ordinary version of the person that wrote the song, because the story is better. And I think that's fair, and I think that's pretty cool. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, that is cool, but I almost feel like that's like such an old school mentality. Like, when we had like actors from, you know, even as way back as the 80s, as way back, I was born in the 80s, okay, so you go back to like the 50s.
Depressingly, for someone who was born in the 80s, it's a really long time ago now.
I know. You know what? I'm embracing it. Did I look at a makeup tutorial for aging women? Yes, I did.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have, geez, I don't know if you've ever shot something like that yourself, but like watching your face in close up on the camera for the bump out, I was like, no, awful.
You did it magically. In fact, I was like, these are really good tips.
I mean, because I'm an actor, I've had to do my own makeup years and years and years. I do actually love makeup and makeup tutorials. I'm like, it's not a spoof without love. Like I'm not into the crazy stuff, but I love a good lippy. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's why it works, is because there's a genuine place that you're coming from. But with older actors, like, you know, we got to live in the idea of them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you know, like, Robert Mitchum. He's like way back. So I just watched a documentary on him, and like, here are these people that are like calling him like he's magical, and actually he's like this very extremely depressed person. Like, I almost like the fact that when we approach artists now, like, it's the magic's kind of gone, not in a bad way. It's still amazing that they have that talent, but it's like they're a bit more humbled. At least the ones I like.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think there's a danger in dramatizing the, like, I don't mean literally making a drama, I mean sort of viewing this person as special or unusual in some way beyond the talent. And I think, you know, we see there's a lot of mental health issues in the music industry, and there's a lot of mental health issues, especially around abuse of alcohol and drugs and so on and so forth. And these are all issues that Frank and I have had to sort of grapple with, because a lot of it is that, and I found this and again, this is more of an issue for him because it's not really part of my music persona that I'm rock and roll, sex, drugs and rock and roll. It's not really the vibe. Like, when I first met Frank, it struck me very quickly that whenever we would hang out with anyone, it would be their day with their rock star friend. It would be their time to get mashed up. And even in the best possible way, he was everybody's like, well, I'm with Frank, it's going to be a party. Not everyone, obviously, we have lots of friends that don't see it that way, but a lot of people expect him. You know, and the fans will always be buying shots, which is super, super sweet. But when it's every day, it's actually can become quite problematic.
Yeah.
So do you think if you expect an artist that you love to kind of live up to the image that you have of them in your head, not that that's the only version of that image that it can be, but it just happened to be the one for Frank, it can be quite damaging. It can actually be quite difficult. It's difficult to live up to all the time, and letting people down is really hard.
No, I can only imagine. And I feel like we shouldn't put those kind of expectations on people.
Yeah, but like you say, because a lot of my songs they're quite silly and painfully middle class, and all the things that I actually am, I don't really have I don't have much of a problem with it, and I guess that's the nice thing about it. But when you've been doing it for a long time, because it's still I've only started doing this in my 30s, really. I was doing it before, but sort of alongside acting, just bits and bobs. So I already feel quite comfortable in my own skin. I'm already quite aware of what's good for me and what's not good for me. But if you start when you're very, very young, like a lot of people, and you grow up, the growing up bit, people are not always cool with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they go like off the rails, and I mean, that's kind of like the thing, like with like the children, in social media and TikTok and everything. Like, I'm on TikTok, so I don't judge. I actually think it's a really nice platform.
Oh, I can't get. I've got stuck at Instagram. I haven't gone beyond.
No, you need to. You'll do great. I'll coach you. No, honestly, it's a really cool platform, and I think it's really good for musicians too. I legit think that. But you know, the idea of like popping and then that like now you have a persona. I don't want that to happen to a different generation. I hope that there's a bit of reality in there.
Yeah. Well, and I think social media can be, it can be really unpleasant, and it can also be absolutely wonderful, just like everything else. And I love Instagram because I've had exclusively lovely experiences on Instagram. So I really like it, but I like it because it's like a picture book, you know, and I'm not as into the stories, which is why I think that TikTok it was why I've not gone. It's not that I have a problem with it. I just haven't engaged with it, because I like the bit where you can put like a scrapbook and then it stays and you can go back, whereas my stories disappear, and I'm like, oh.
Right.
And I like pictures. I'm very into pictures. So Pinterest and Instagram for me are my like safe place. I also think that when you have like a picture of a person, people tend to treat that person like a person more. So like on Twitter, no, everyone thinks that they're not really talking to a person. I mean, they're
yes.
And I know I have done. I've tweeted at long before I sort of had seen it from the other side. but I'd tweeted at people that I adored, famous people probably, or like actors that I'd seen in a show, being like, "Oh, when can I marry you?" or something.
Did you really?
Yeah, probably. I think I sent one to just do a joke tweet to, like, I saw Chiwetel Ejiofor in a show, who is an extraordinary actor, and I was like, I can't remember what I said, but it was, now looking back, I'm like, he did probably see that. That's his Twitter account. Like, he's a normal person. I think it was something along the lines of, how do I find Chiwetel Ejiofor? How do I get him to marry me? Something like that. And it was probably funnier than that at the time, and it was definitely intended as a joke, but it just never occurred to me that he'd actually see it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's okay as long as you don't do it every day. When you do it every day, that's what's like, creeper.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess, but lots of people do, or they'll do it with abuse, or they'll just at someone that they're sort of aiming it at, but not actually, they wouldn't talk to them that way. They wouldn't speak to them that way. They don't realize that they kind of are speaking to them that way. Whereas I think on Instagram, because it's, here's a picture of me today, people are a bit more conscious that that account is run by a human. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So maybe TikTok's better for that.
And also with the video aspect, doing this here with podcasting, I feel like it makes a huge difference. Yeah. Even if I'm not like fully engaged, like looking back and seeing that person, it just feels different.
Yeah, no, I think, and again, like we said before we pressed play, that record, that just seeing a human at the moment is so exciting.
I know, because you're not meeting new people this year. That's what's so weird. You have to like actively seek it out and not come off as a creeper when you reach out to somebody.
It's difficult to do with it, can't it? Where you have to do it, if you're in the arts, I guess people are kind of used to it a bit more often.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you? What's the best way you found going about locating people for the podcast?
I mean, Googling or trying, usually just looking them up, or word of mouth, like getting like somebody that says you should look at this person. I have found that like sometimes I have like publicists reach out to me, and I'll do it sometimes, but I found that those are the interviews that like are kind of my least favorite, because I haven't felt a connection with them. And I try to, for sure, but like I've just started to say no when people reach out for that, because it makes everybody kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, and I think Zoom is great. Obviously, we've all become very familiar with Zoom, but it is quite, especially if you've got more than two people. There's those awkward pauses where you're like, who's going next? Even when it's people you know incredibly well, it's much harder than just sitting in a room and talking to someone. It is, the internet could stall, and it's just awkward. So.
No, it is definitely different, and the group Zooms are harder because everybody's trying to sometimes out-joke each other, and you're like, we don't need that.
It's
yes. So as we're kind of winding down here, I did want to touch on just technology in music, because I find for me, I actually do find most of the musicians I listen to on Bandcamp. Or just through record labels that I really like I like Burning Witches, which is actually based in the UK. So as somebody who's putting out their music in 2020, how did you see technology as a way to kind of put yourself out there? Because it's so different than if you're like trying in like the 90s or even the early aughts.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'll be, to be completely straightforward, I'm rubbish at this sort of thing. I'm not good at the back ends of websites. I'm not good at, like, I'm not an idiot. I can make it work, but it's not natural for me. It feels like a bit of a headache to get myself started. And I was very lucky because I put out the record with Extra Mile, who are my husband's label, who he's been with since he began, and who are therefore like family friends. Like, these are people that we know and love dearly. And there's a goddaughter in Germany. So they're friends. So, but those guys are professionals and they put this stuff out all the time. So we had a Bandcamp and everything in advance. I think it's very easy to be slightly skewed in what you think you need to do depending on what you use. So I use Spotify all the time, and I buy hard copy CDs to support the artists that I listen to, or I'll buy some merch or something as well. But I love Spotify. It's my favorite one. It's the one I use. So I kind of thought that was the big one for me. And I've never even looked at Apple Music. I still haven't. So to be honest, if the label hadn't mentioned it to me, I wouldn't have thought to do it. So I guess you need to be really careful about that, because there's so many different ways to listen to music. And with streaming this year as well, that's been really interesting, like with live streaming specifically. with if you do one on Facebook or whatever, that annoys people because a lot of people are not on Facebook. But then if you do it on Instagram, that annoys people because they're not on Instagram. So you kind of have to consider them. So with live streaming, we started thinking about it like geographic areas. It's like, okay, so this one's for the Facebook people, and this one's for the Instagram people, the people that live in Instagram, and the people that live in Facebook. And then there's YouTube, which is its own beast. But I think you probably need to be better at it than I am, to be honest.
or have somebody in your corner.
Yeah, or have someone in your corner who can talk you through it. I mean, if I didn't have the label, I would have made more mistakes, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I would have needed to ask somebody else to help because it's not something I really know about. And specifically because I've been acting for 10 years I haven't learned much about the music industry from a professional perspective until this year. So there was a lot to learn and to take on board. I'm still I have my Bandcamp, but I also sell my t-shirts through Etsy because that was a platform that I knew. Do you know what I mean? So I put my t-shirts and CDs on Etsy and everyone's like, what? Put them on Bandcamp. And I was like, I like Etsy. I know how it works.
I feel the same way. You're like, I understand it's like glitches and
yes, I know. I'm used to this software right now. So Bandcamp now is up and running and it's fine and people find you on it, but I'm not brilliant at it, and I'm not brilliant at. I think you also have to pick your forum, so you have to advertise, so you have to be on social media. But I know for me that Twitter is bad for me mentally.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a safe place for me. People are horrible on Twitter, and I don't like it when people are horrible to each other. So I put information on Twitter as like an advert, but I won't really interact. But then that can be a problem then when people are trying to talk to you nicely and you miss the messages because I just don't look at it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to sort of have your own boundaries for your own safety.
You can't be everywhere. It's just too much.
Yeah.
But your shirts are amazing. Like when I saw your shirt, it's like, I like this. It's like, because you know what? Like so many times with bands, they might have a cool design, but then it'll be like on this heavy cotton. And you're like, do you not know that we all want blends?
Soft blends. Well, also, I mean, I'm wearing my friend Beans on Toast t-shirt today, which I love, but I never wear t-shirts ever. I'm a vest and jumper girl. Like I don't find t-shirts generally a bit like high up. You know what I mean? So I did vests because like no one ever does, and the number of women who've been like, oh my god, thank you for doing a vest.
Wait, really, you mean like tank top is a vest?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was like, where are these button vests?
To translate to America, yeah, vests are sort of like vests are undergarments, aren't they? Generally, when you're like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like when you guys talk about pants over here, it can get very confusing.
Wait, what do you say?
Trousers, pants.
Oh, okay. That's fancy.
Yeah. We have trousers or you have jeans, but if you talk about your pants over here, you're talking about your knickers. So,
oh, okay.
Did you know that?
No.
Fun. The other really fun one is that Trump means fart in the UK.
Oh, yeah. I lived in Belgium for a bit when I was like younger, and like this one child would always go around saying trumpeted. My parents had to explain to me like what that meant. I was like, oh, that's a very beautiful way of saying that.
It's sweet. Yeah, it's sweet, and it's become very useful over the last 4 years. But,
yes.
but no, so tank tops.
Yeah.
Tank tops. So again, no one does those, and there's almost no like female-friendly merch out there. It tends to be just sort of your basic t-shirt, which I don't wear and none of my friends wear. So I was like, what are my female friends? So we did a few vests as well, tank tops as well.
No, that's great, because I also hate it whenever they have like the baby doll shirt. Like that's what women wear. I'm like, no,
with the tiny sleeves. It's
yes!
like, give me a sleeve or don't give me a sleeve. You know,
yes. It's like, give me a pocket or don't give me a pocket.
Sleeves, and what I find annoying is, you know, sleeves get like caught in a cardigan. When you still have the baby doll sleeve, it's like, cool. So now I just get caught in the cardigan, but I don't have the sleeve for when I want the sleeve. So I'm just like, this is the worst of all worlds. No, I agree. I'm with you.
It is, and it's definitely like, you know, when you haven't shaved your armpits. You're like, I cannot get away with a lot in this shirt.
Yeah, exactly. So I've gone for both extremes. We've got t-shirts and we've got tank tops. So,
cool.
Choice. Yeah.
No, I love it, and that really meant a lot to me to see your taste in your merch. Ooh. I know that might sound silly, but, you know, really coming from like a design background, it's hard to do.
It is. Well, and it's also, I think, because it's still really new to me. So my first merch that I took on tour, the tour that we were doing back in March, which we called off obviously when COVID became more of a nightmare. But the t-shirts I got done for that, I did purely because it made me laugh, and it was Guys on Tour, as in like Guys on Tour, but with my name, and that's all it said.
Oh,
pun, and I thought it was hilarious. I'm not at all sure that it was hilarious, but like, the people that bought it, who got the pun, were like, I understand you. I think we speak each other's language, you know. So in some ways, it is like identifying this is who we are. There's a bit of fun in it. There's a bit of silliness in it, and I like soft fabrics. Is the most important thing. I agree. So, but it's difficult to know how to brand yourself because I'm not. I'm a terrible artist, and I love like interior design. Behind you, I'm painting this wall, and there are currently 11 different samples of paint on this wall at the moment.
Like on the wall?
Yeah, because I can't. So some of them are like stickers, you know, there are some that you can do stickers. So yeah. I've given myself far too many choices, but that's the problem I have, is I'm really indecisive. So the design for the shirts was taken, fortunately, Evan, who is he does lots of the graphic design for Extra Mile. He's also father. He and Danny, who work for Extra Mile, their daughter is Frank's goddaughter, Eva May. So it's all, like I said, all in the family, and he's a brilliant designer, and he designed the front cover of the album, and then it sort of just translated quite nicely into t-shirts, album of the EP. But then we're doing an album, so we were in the process of starting to record the album. So then I'll have to think of an album cover for that, and that, honestly, and a name. It's the hardest thing. How do you name an album? It's really hard.
Yeah. That's hard. But it's like, how do you name a band too? Like sometimes band names are like, oh, you're stuck with that. Cool.
Yeah. But that's why I was like, because I quite often have to go solo, and a lot of the time, a lot of my band was saying it should just be your name, but I kind of wanted it to be more of a kind of entity. Do you know what I mean? Because the other guys are, you know, they're a part of it. That it is the four of us a lot of the time, or the three of us, or the two of us, or you know, it varies. So that's why I just nicked like a bit of my name, and also no one can call that horribly pretentious because it's literally my name, and that felt safe.
That's good. Yes.
My name. So,
if it was like your whole name, then that would be different. But it does feel like more inclusive when it's like your last name.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, because it's kind of like, I mean, it was so hard though. It took me about, and honestly, this is quite depressing. It took me about a year to think of what we would call it. And it's my name, and it took me a year to decide my own name.
But you wanted to feel comfortable. I mean, because it is a kind of permanent thing. Like, you can't really change your band name afterwards.
It's difficult to do, and it's like I wanted something that didn't make everybody feel that made people feel included, the guys in the band, but so they could be a part of it, but that was still distinctly me. And it took me quite a long time to realize that my name could do that. I was like, we were coming up with lots of like Jessica Guise and the blah blah blahs doing it for quite a long time. There's just so many of those.
Yeah, and that's I like it. I like one word names.
Yeah, I do. Well, much nicer for much easier.
Yes.
So they fit into loads more design.
So since we only have a few more minutes here, I just wanted to one last question. So are you just gonna be doing like more live shows on social since the touring thing wasn't able to happen?
Well, so I'm actually doing, I think I'm allowed to talk about this, it's sold out, but I'm doing, there's a socially distant show that my friend Sean McGowan, I don't know if you've come across, is playing in London on Monday.
Okay.
And I'm going to be supporting. So it's a socially distanced room, so everyone's split up and far away from each other, and you come in bubbles. And that will be the first one of those that I've done. So that's Monday. But it's difficult because you don't know how people are going to feel about it, whether we should be doing it or what you should be doing or what's good or what's bad. And you have to trust the venue, I suppose, if the venue is sticking to all the rules and trying the hardest. Everyone is trying the hardest, you know.
Yeah.
But, so I'm going to do that, which I'm really excited about, because there'll be real life people there. And Sean, if you do know him, then amazing. If you don't know his stuff, careful of a couple of them because you'll be crying. But
oh gosh, thank you.
There's one in particular called Spring Hill, which is utterly beautiful, and I cannot get through. I just can't get through it without breaking. So,
thank you. I'll try it when I'm alone in a closet.
Yeah, exactly. So that will be really, really fun. And then I think we might be, Frank and I, talking about doing another Christmas stream, and I might do another one. But it is really fun doing the live streaming thing. It is really cool, but it's a bit odd because I don't know how long you can do them for, and I kind of still feel like I need a reason to do it rather than just I'm doing another one. Whereas live shows, you're like, well, I'm doing it because it's fun. So I guess I need to get my head around that. Also, I start my doctorate pretty soon, so that's going to get hectic.
Your doctorate?
I will, yeah.
Oh my God, can you stop being so talented? Can you just like start subtracting things?
I haven't got it yet. I haven't even begun it yet. So, it's going to be a long, gruesome process.
Oh.
So that starts in January. So I think I might try and do one before January. But hopefully, we had some really, really good news. I'm sure you've heard we had a vaccine approved over here that a couple of days ago or 2 days ago, which means that as much as it's still going to be a really long time till things are back to normal, like there is light at the end of the tunnel. All of a sudden, it feels like okay. And I always knew that was going to be the case. I always had faith in the scientists and the vaccine, but just seeing that report, like it's been approved. I mean, I wept like a tiny child. I was so happy because it's like it's real. There is an out. There is a way out. So as soon as it's safe, we'll be touring again. As soon as possible, I will do some guys shows, and also I think Frank will do some. I might go with him because we're a bubble, so it's fun anyway touring with your husband, but it's extra useful when you're not contaminating more people with your human germs.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So we as soon as we can, there'll be real live shows again. But in the meantime, there might be some more live streams, but we'll see how we go. The real focus at the moment is trying to get a start on the album.
Cool. And your doctorate.
And the doctorate, yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed the live show, so I'll be tuning in for the next one.
Thank you. Well, one day we'll get back. I mean, hopefully I'd love to come to the States and to get to Baltimore and to play some shows, but I've never played in the States. And Frank and I have this sort of plan in our back pocket to go and do a couple's tour of various bits of America at some point, because it's something I'd love to do. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be there at some point. And then, I mean, he's there all the time, but...
Yeah. Oh, no, I hope so. I will totally go. So I hope to see you then.
Me too.
Thank you, Jess, for the great talk. I appreciate it.
Well, it was lovely chatting. Pleasure to meet you, or virtually.
Yes, nice to meet you. I think it counts now, like virtually. That's all we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much to Jess for being on the show. It really made my day having that conversation with her. It happened at the end of 2020. And I just feel like with all these conversations that I get to have with people and doing more video stuff, it really makes a difference in how the rest of the day goes. I don't think you realize how little human contact until you sit down and have a conversation that somebody other than who you live with. I love Jemmy to death, but then getting to talk about other subjects is just what a special treat. So go check out Jess's music and her Instagram. I'll have everything linkable in the show notes. All right, guys, so this week's movie recommendation is one that I recommend often. And after my chat with Jess, I sent her a few just movie recommendations because as someone who loves movies, that's just what you do. Even if it's not asked for. You're you know what, you should watch. But this is a movie that I feel deserves more love than it's gotten. And as I say to everyone before I recommend it, I say, watch it with people you feel comfortable with. Probably not your mom, probably not children. And the movie is Donald Cried. The reason why I love this film so much is I think we've all had a friend that's like Donald, or maybe some of us are Donald. Kind of touch and go there. That reminds you of just how complicated relationships can be, and it has humor and charm and heart, and I always love movies where you're laughing and crying just a little bit on the inside. All right, I will see you for the next interview. Bye, guys.